is a conversation I had with Blake Larson and Alexander Li. Both were my close friends, and we started building EasyTaxi for Rocket Internet together in 2013. So we've been in the trenches together, and we have had lots of interesting encounters and battle stories. So over the years, we have remained very close friends, even though our path diverged a little bit. Blake is now back in the US, living in St. Petersburg, Florida. Alex is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So over a weekend, all three of us gathered in Singapore to discuss about some of the learnings and reflections and life lessons. So in this episode, you will hear us talking about three major topics: challenges of being a founder CEO. Number two, personal growth through entrepreneurship. Number three, our Rocket Internet experience and scaling issues. So I hope you enjoy the discussion. This is episode 91 of the Impulso podcast by Momentum Works.
Can tell a CEO about his business that I'm going to know better than him. All I can do is ask him or questions of why they chose what they did. But ultimately, most of the conversations end up being like therapy for what it is to be a founder and to not have an outlet someone to speak to, because you can't tell your board certain things. You can't tell your during port certain things, right? Because you don't want them running in, every thought you have, you can't tell them, because then they go run and do it. And you're like, no, I just wanted to talk. Yeah. So I think the founder role is so lonely. Yeah. So often, it's founder / CEO role, because they don't have even a peer network. It's their peers are busy in the same situation. Right. So anyway, I end up being a therapist. It's not in a bad way, but I almost am the personal board to the CEO, to be able to say what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and digesting it.
Yeah. Is that because you have been through it? I mean,
it's only because I've been through it. Yeah. And again, it's and then actually post exit to some degree, having that feeling of being lost, right? So actually, I use that to actually then go talk to the founder of don't forget why you're building what you're building, and what would be what's success for you. Because sometimes you get lost just going and going and being better and better and better, but to what end? Yeah. Right? Yeah. For you as a person. Yeah. And so anyway, that's actually where most of our conversations end up. Yeah. They think it's all going to be strategy, but it's actually why am I doing what I'm doing, and where do we want it to go? And then the self-reflection piece, I didn't do hardly any of that when I was building. I don't know how you guys felt when you were just in the wheel.
So there's a lot to unpack, because I think ultimately, most people are not going to be in a situation where they have time to think about the personal self. Well, this also is in the 20s, right? You're meant to just throw yourself at one thing and go deep to kind of reap the value, accrue the value. Mm. And it's at the sacrifice of being a whole person. Right. It's like you said, kind of mix your personality to being a startup founder, and then I kind of been through the same thing afterwards, where well, at least you have an exit. I didn't have a significant exit, but I've had a period of quiet reflection.
Who the hell am I? I don't take a leg.
Exactly. And what I realized what I gained was so valuable, which helps you ground you even more. So if you want to build more ventures in the future, is the personal aspect. Which are those things you talk about?
No, that's great. I like that, because I always tell people when are you going to build the next one? When are you going to do it? And I'm now I know what is important to me if I go build a company, really what my values were. Because the first or second time through it, you're kind of just trying to figure it out. But now I'm I don't want a company with more than 20 people. You don't want more than 20. Yeah. Because I'm a builder. I don't like managing. I don't like the governance of things that are required to build certain types of companies. But I only know that by going through it to the extreme.
So you like a certain size where everyone and people can come together and figure things out. And
yeah, I like the intellectual debate and respect, and or anybody can contribute equally. Mm. And I was always a reluctant leader, in the sense it's
you're by force.
But by force, right? But I'm never one where it's I need to be the captain.
Correct.
And it's I ended up being the captain for lots of reasons. Yeah. But I don't take any I don't know.
It's not ego driven.
Yes, exactly. Because it's it's not that fun for me. What's fun for me is sitting if you guys are hey, I got a great idea. Yeah. I'd be what can you do? What can you do? What can I do? Yeah. Yeah. And and whoever it is, that is for me what's a lot of fun. And then at some point, I recognize once Lalamove got so big, it's I don't want to somebody's so much better suited to run teams of hundreds and thousands than me.
Correct.
And like at first I was like, oh, like I'm a failure. I can't I can't upskill to that. And then I was like, wait a minute. Afterwards I reflected, I was like, hey, I don't enjoy that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like where's my sweet spot?
Correct.
And that is someone else's sweet spot. And like I'm not anything less because I don't want to be that. So anyway, that's where like I say 20 people. It could be 50, it could be 100, but like the point is
I think on average, if you're a good founder, that you're going to be in that kind of position. I've known a lot of people who've like kind of raised to unicorn venture status, have hundreds of people, and they say the same exact thing, right? I think it's a different type of breed of person. Maybe like the barbarian sociopath. Likes to. I manage thousands of people. This is my. It's like a corporate ego, right? But like if you're like a innate builder, or you want to solve problems or add value, to have impact around you, it's like it's not really about that.
It's very, very different things that you enjoy.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And what I would say is like working with Shing, who started Lalamove, there's so few people that can upskill themselves as quickly as a company that like
to match that,
right? Like if you think about that, like we grew more than 300% for the first like 6 years of the company. Think about any personal skill that you have. If you ask yourself to be 3x better next year than you were this year, and do that like several years in a row, the vast majority of us like cannot. And if you do, like you end up having to trade off everything.
Yes, correct.
Except that. So anyway, at least that's my experience, like what I saw.
And it's not just that is like some sort of exponential growth along like a single line, right? You basically need to teach some of the old skills you have, and you have to build some new skills because the organizational complexity, the work you have been doing will become different as the company scales. First, it's not just like the size thing, right?
For sure, yeah. Like, and it's the recognition of that and the letting go of like what you were good at. So I always used to say like, in my job, because like again, I started when we were like 10 people, and I left when we were about 10,000. You know, and I said like I would always be. I was like I felt like a sociopath because I was like terrible at my job for 6 months. So I'm like, you're figuring it out.
That's normal. Right?
No, but then like after 6 months, you're like, I got this. And for 6 months, for 6 months, you're great, and then the company goes 3x, and like
you're like, then you're not.
Shit. I'm terrible again. So it's like this mental gymnastic of like feeling great and then like terrible in a very short amount of time, and like that actually can be quite exhausting. So that's my experience. I don't know what your experience like. You've gone across a lot of different companies too, especially with Rocket and like jumping in at different points. Like what have you guys seen?
You first.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like because what you say is very interesting because. At the end of the day, because you went through it, I feel a lot of people in like our position, if we haven't gone through that, we still have that what if hunger or desire or like because I feel like after my quiet few years of reflection the past few years, I think I've come to the same conclusion, but without the experience. So it's just like one part of me is like I should just go be a founder of something, but it's like more curated to something that's like more ikigai, like it's just more suited to me. It doesn't have to be tech. It doesn't have to be so ego driven. It has to align more with who I am as a person. And then I think I've matured to a point where I can probably do that. But it's more like if I had that experience before, I probably also don't need that desire. Right. So
well, and I think like you have to go through it, right? Like it's like life. You have to go through it to know what's important. And so there's like no just like knowing. Actually, there's a few people that are so vocationally driven that they can just like.
Correct.
And I was always jealous of those people, but I just had to throw myself in to figure it out. Like the doing was the part that forced me through self-reflection, but I never did it not enough until after.
I kind of like the journey, like of the past 11 years. Last week we just had the sort of MBA reunion. I think you guys joined Rocket around the same time. Young at that time, sort of. I mean, you have friends going to like hedge funds, friends going to consulting, friends going to large corporates. Last week I was in a reunion of my MBA class. I mean, in Xi'an, a city in northwest China. I think 10 of us showed up. People went through very different career paths. And it was interesting that I probably the most reconciled with myself amongst the cohort because.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we have a partner from McKinsey, we have somebody who is very senior at the investment bank in China, we have somebody else who is a VP of a large brand, etc., etc. But I think I'm in a situation where I have probably because I've been through so much turbulence in Rocket and after Rocket. I looked at people who complain about things which they have no control of. So I look at things. I mean, at least I have control of what I want to do. I mean, it gives me anxiety because sometimes you need to figure out what's the right thing to do. Sometimes you feel really shitty because you made a wrong decision. You led people towards the wrong path. But at the end of the day, we look back at all this, and the richness of the experience is something that I was like, wow, okay, interesting. And after the whole thing, I am probably the only one amongst the group who doesn't have any white hair.
Yeah. Once I stopped working, my hair started to grow back.
I take a guess and interpret maybe why.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these people are, it's kind of what we tied to what we talked about before. We're optimizing, we're putting ourselves into the situation of optimizing towards a non-clear goal without non-clear optimum, other than hyper capitalistic growth, right? So in that, you don't have a defined sense of self, which is really important to probably kind of have along that way if you can carve the time. But if not, you do it later afterwards, like what we're talking about, right? So all your friends in that situation, they're living to society's expectations of what you should be, a partner, family or whatever,
Especially in the context,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I think what's very interesting in your case, if you really look at the evolution of momentum works over time, it's a manifestation of who you are, and look at the products and how you execute them, right? Like the type of media or the content you do. It's always been very consistently Jianggan. Like I just know it, and that really works well for you. Like, so I think about, like, I've been thinking about this for the past few years. Like, if we look at our past experience in the past decade, how can we use our skill set to monetize them in a very different market environment? Right? Because up until recently, I didn't have too many opportunities where rocket ships were coming across me. Maybe in the past few years, things are changing, maybe situations changing, but in general, it's been very hard to get a job or to build something with easy money, fast scaling, right? It doesn't exist. So, but like what you've done is, I think you've kind of you injected yourself, sense of self in the company. The company is you, right? And so that's why
That doesn't sound very promising, but
No, but like,
there's pros and cons. There's pros and
of
cons,
course,
right?
yeah.
So like you go very wide in the beginning, which is a valid strategy for startups, because then you see which points are valuable. Then you hone in, which I think you've done when it works. And sometimes you open up more opportunity again, more chaos to find out how to grow that more. You kind of go in focus again, right? And I think that's why you have more balance, because you've kind of been living the way you want to live, and you've been able to monetize it, whether it's been in cockroach mode or growth mode. You've kind of been through that, right?
Enjoy the process of working with colleagues at the moment. And I think just now I mentioned about the fact that I'm most reconciled with myself.
well, I think I had the same experience too. Like talking to my other friends that went through the MBA, we had a reunion last year, and the people that go through like the gift of entrepreneurship or being a founder or whatever is maybe not like in the moment. It's like incredibly hard and taxing, and like you're doing things like to like the nth degree all the time just to survive, right? And it's a lot, but the gift it gives you is that you get to know yourself and you do it for the reasons that you know are important. Whereas like somebody who's gone through the corporate route, they're still working within the constructs of an environment that's already been shaped for them, and they have to conform, not in a bad way, but they have to fit that system. Whereas an entrepreneur, you are building this, like you're building the cars, you drive it. And through that, you end up learning what is truly yours. So when you say like Momentum Works is a reflection of him, it's because he's gone through that journey to actually know what him is because in entrepreneurship, there is no context, there is no system unless you create it.
Well, I think there's two parts to that. One, I think early days, it's going to be more a subconscious manifestation.
Yes.
Right. And then over time, as you I don't know, you have to ask your team this, Jianggan, but as you mature, you can more consciously think about that from a personal and professional standpoint, how you want to take that towards a vision. Right. So whereas I think in corporate, there's a little bit of the corporate trap. What you described is that people might conform themselves to corporate, but that's wrong. Because at the end of the day, a lot of things are out of their hands. The way corporate machine is built, the game is different. So when you do that, you become very unhappy. And those people are mixing up like, personal expression or personal interest or personal brand with a corporate, and they're trying to become that, but it's not. So like, I think the people who really play corporate well, and if you're not going to the very, very top as CEO, but you're somewhere in between, that's very high level, it's more like, I have my life here and my life in corporate is separate. Right. So I do 9 to 5, but then I go have tons of money. I go ski in the Alps or whatever every year.
They don't lie to themselves for the game that it is, and they make that game work for them.
And I think the flip side of entrepreneurship is that you can't divorce that early on. It's impossible. Because you will not truly knowledge. You cannot build anything. You can't build belief. You cannot connect people to a mission. So then that's where the flip side for an entrepreneur is that it's very dangerous that after, say, 10 years of execution, it's your own baby, and then you exit, and what do you do? Right? It's just like,
So one thing I would like to ask you guys, I mean, obviously you left Rocket to join Lalamove. It's very early days. I think we left at the same time
Yeah.
because of separate. Yeah.
Forced, yeah. We lost it.
We lost the battle, and I think, of course, there are lots of reflections. I think that the one thing for sure is that we're focusing on the wrong things.
Well, that's
We focus a lot on BI. We focus a lot on operations. Yeah.
But the thing is, the way on venture scaling that structure of Rocket Internet, it's out of our hands, right? We were at the country execution level, whereas at the strategic level, was failed. And that layer was very multi-layered. We were technically N-2 from Oliver Sanger, but at the same time, one was in Brazil, one was in Germany. It's not like we're going to pick up the phone and call Ollie to change strategy, right? I mean, by right, Rocket was structured where you could, but it takes a lot of balls. You're going to cut out, like, you're going to kill a lot of social capital.
And also, you should be willing to sacrifice your like real-time KPIs transmitted to Germany over a certain period of time because you are doing the right thing. You're focusing resources on something long-term, and that is hard. That is mentally very hard.
What do you guys think? Do you think from an execution standpoint, we were probably one of the better regions out of EasyTaxi executing KPIs? I mean, like what was given to us and what we had to achieve?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the numbers back.
Quite a while ago.
The model of Rocket for EasyTaxi, I can't speak for the other ventures because you guys participated, but at least for me, it's like bound to be a failed model unless you rise to number one very, very quickly, and then you get the subsequent funding to continue that, like that blitzkrieg, right? Because there really was no strategy. Like the strategy was open markets as quick as you can, onboard supply, get as many rides as you can. But that's like a very empty strategy. Like from a resource standpoint, the tech, it's like Southeast Asia is all different markets, right? Just like South America, just like everywhere. And so it's like
all different.
Having run subsequent like technology companies that are heavy in operations, if your product doesn't have some level of like nuance, even just payments, for example, something like this, like something very simple, like it doesn't scale. Like you can keep throwing people and money and marketing to like drive inbound, but there's like no retention. So it's like we were bound to fail. And then once Grab raised 250 million for 4 countries and we'd only raised 70 million for 33 countries, like if it's a money game and a speed game, money speeds you up. And then if everything else being held equal, let's say product and tech with Grab and EasyTaxi were the same, you're toast in that kind of market because consumers have no switching costs. Right? They have a coupon switching cost.
Yeah, correct.
I remember like a few months into Rocket, into EasyTaxi, I wrote an email to someone higher up in Rocket. I said, okay, what's the strategy?
So many times.
Guess what I got? I got an email back in all caps, about 600 to 700 words saying that, what the hell is strategy? It's all execution. It's about, as you said, opening new markets, owning market share, etc. Nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that, I mean, how do you get there, right? I mean, especially as you said, right? I mean, 70 million for 32 countries, but it's one product team for 32 countries. The amount of customization that's needed, the amount of like local nuances that you have to deal with, and especially in Southeast Asia, the amount of languages you have to deal with. Hell.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like simple things like even how to scale your team. We had zero playbook, right? Like you could have structured your team different than I structured my team, which you structured different from your team. And so it's like
that wasn't really fun about it.
What? No, it was fun, but like from it, like if your game plan, speed, and execution, like these are not decisions that an MD should really have to think through, right? Like it's like you have if you have 1,000 rides a day, you should have 3 ops people, like correct. And whether that's right or wrong for the country, the speed in which you can do it because you don't have to think about how to do it is way more important if that is your strategy.
Correct.
So like that's where the strategy stopped way too quickly. If you ask me, there's no playbook.
I think I remember you started Hong Kong before Vietnam, and then I was asking.
I started Hong Kong. Then like I remember after a month of getting into Hong Kong, they're like, "Go help him start Singapore."
And then like asking you.
I was I mean talk about Hong Kong later, but I started in Singapore. I have the money in my personal account. I have Citibank asked me, hey, why do you have so much money? And they said, okay, there's this guy called Blake in Hong Kong. Obviously, he's not from Hong Kong, and he has experience. He can come and help you.
1 month of experience. They were all talking to you, I think. You were the shining star. Like, okay, this is how we do it.
Then he descended to Singapore, staying at a shitty hotel, and I was saying, how do you do it? Let's print some.
We print flyers, and we spent like 3 hours under Marina Bay Sands in the taxi line. That's what we do. I go, I think so. Someone trained me, literally. I stopped in Hong Kong.
Correct.
And was Dennis there? I don't know. I think Dennis, for 1 day, here are your KPIs, here's your budget, see ya. And I was like, And our office literally for 5 people was not 50 square feet.
This is the office this time,
right? So anyway, like, and I don't blame any of them, right? Like of course but it forced you to learn, and like obviously it's what probably made us friends.
Yeah.
Right? Had there been a playbook and you just stayed in your own thing, it's like so like I have no regrets or whatever, but like getting to do something similar to the second time around, where I still made lots and lots of mistakes, but I was like at least aware of some of like there has to be like a thoughtfulness as a leader at least 3 to 6 months out.
Yeah.
And it could change if the information changes. Just to be like, let's open. And like right after I saw you, I went and like helped hire Usman and went to Jakarta.
Yeah.
And then I got sent to Bombay. And I was still a guy who only had like 3 weeks on the job, right? Like,
So he's more experienced. He's going to help actually, even though that the place that he has done is like 1 month old, right?
1 month old, and actually Hong Kong was a terrible performer. Singapore like was the shining star. Actually, if you remember, right? You know, like relative. I remember the chart where it showed like weeks to number of rides, and like
There's a lot to do with the supply and demand dynamics in
all that.
agreed. Like, but at the time, it's like we didn't necessarily know that.
Yeah.
We didn't know that, right? Like, you're like bigger city and bigger should have more orders, like less competition, blah blah blah. Like, maybe if there's not enough smartphones, I remember hearing the stories about like you probably like selling smartphones or buying them, right? And it's like, is that
Unsecured loans.
Is that right? Exactly. Is that like when you're spending so much time trying to equip your drivers to be able to be on your platform, you're not building your platform, you're selling phones.
Correct. And at one point it was like
Biggest-
revenue-wise, yeah, it's like the biggest. So
Yeah. So anyway, like, but great stories, like war stories after the fact. But when you're in the moment, you're like, that's the blind leading the blind. So sorry, guys.
it was the same for Zalora when we launched Zalora very early days. It was just ex-Groupon guys. No one knew what they were doing. But then you're just sent to one country who has 1 month more experience.
Yeah.
It's like they just draw the chart. Okay, here's operations, here's buying, here's marketing. You just need to build each of these things. And then you just pick one. And then it's just like, okay, good luck. Then I'll to the next country and do the same thing, right? So it's just very, very
I remember spent so much time also, like you said you had money in the bank account. Like they're like, you need to go get on this bank account for it. Because maybe it's Zalora Hong. No, it's something else that got shut down.
It was like a share, it was like a
shell entity here, but my name wasn't on it. I was also not local, and I like, and they're like, but the money's going there. But oh, by the way, they've got like $100,000 of debt, and we're only transferring you $50,000. And I was like, I got creditors coming after me who I don't even know who they are. So, like it's from like past entity
because you are director of that.
Because I'm the director, my name's on the director, and like I can't get off of it. It was like I don't know what to do. So
I remember that entity in Malaysia, which we
3D services.
I was handling all the liquidation of all the entities in Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's one entity in Malaysia called Rocket Internet Services Sendirian in the Heart.
Okay.
And that has gone through like 8 different companies, the same entity, and has never done audit.
Yeah.
And have 4 directors who were working for different companies.
Yeah.
And obviously everyone wants to resign, but nobody wants to sign to let it.
Yeah. So we sign it off.
So did you get them all in the same room? Like how? What?
I just didn't care. We just
went away.
Left it there.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I was not.
We're not it. Okay, yeah.
I'm one of them, but I think Tito Costa was one of them, and so I'm not sure how it went. I hope you have enjoyed what we have discussed. It's a fairly long discussion we had over the weekend, so we have divided that into 3 different episodes. So this is the first episode, and you will have 2 more episodes coming up. Of course, there are a lot more anecdotes and stories that we could share, and I hope that over the years we will bring more of this to you. And I also hope that you can reflect about your own journey and just write to us if you have anything you want to discuss. Thank you.